Today I'm going to talk about my top 3 biggest mistakes beginners make that I have seen thousands of students do over and over, and quick fixes on how to correct those. So let's dive into today's video. The first step is using black for your shadow. And so I'm just going to do really quick demo so that you can see the difference it makes. So with our blueberry, and all of these are going to be little fast exercises, so I'm not going to paint them fully as if I were to sit down and paint this for, probably take about 20 minutes, 15 minutes to paint this, but we're gonna do quick so that you guys can kind of see. So if I lay down my blue on this blueberry, do a little bit of a highlight there, and then if, typically my students always thought that to darken something you use black, which we all think that. It's just kind of ingrained in us to think that if you want to darken an area to grab some black. Now, when you grab black to darken, it ends up muddying up the color. And so we're gonna show you really quick by grabbing, this is just ivory black. So if I kind of put that in there for my shadow while it's wet, and we'll even kind of pull it out for the cast shadow as well. So we kind of put it in there for the form shadow and the cast shadow. Add a little more blue into that. Okay, so that's just kind of that first layer down using black for my shadowing. Now, really what you want to be using for your shadow instead of black to darken your color is either the complement to blue, which would be orange. You could also use colors that are kind of analogous to blue. So you could be using like a purplish to add in your shadow on there. Really, you kind of want to use anything but black because it's going to give that object more life to it, and instead of kind of again dulling it down and kind of taking away the vibrancy. So with this, again, you have lots of options, but for this I'm going to use more of like a purpley blue. So we'll kind of start it the same way. And then I might add even just a little bit of yellow into that. I'm gonna kind of do the same thing, how I add a little bit more of the blue on top like we did up here into the shadow. Trying to keep this kind of area a little bit lighter because that's where our light is hitting a little bit more. But you can see already the difference between using the black and using kind of a more purplish color for the shadow. It just gives the painting more life. And so I always told my students, usually what I would actually end up doing for so many years is when the palettes would come in at the start of the year, I would take out the black. And so I would replace it with just another color. I would order extra of like a different color and usually add in an extra red or a blue or something to their palettes. And because when I left in the black, their default go-to was to use it, and instead of me saying don't use it, and then them still kind of accidentally wanting to like grab it, I just ended up taking it out, so they didn't even have that option anymore. And so a palette like this that I'm using right now has it in it, but when I use my own palette where I can use the tubes and put in the exact colors I want, I have a Payne's Gray in there, but I don't have an Ivory Black. And the Payne's Gray I very rarely use, and yeah, I don't use it, and I've never seen the point of having black in your shadow because for me it really dulls it down. So that is my first mistake that I always saw my students make. And it's hard because when I was going through these, like my top 3 mistakes, for me, it's been so long since I've been a beginner that I had to think more about the mistakes I saw my students make throughout the years that were very common. And that was always kind of the big one, is using black for shadows. Use anything but black, and I promise it's going to look a lot better. Now, the next biggest mistake I always saw my students make was, it was always the water to paint ratio. And so some students used too much water. So if they were painting this blueberry, it would be, you know, they'd grab their paint and it would be where their brush, I'm trying to get a lot of water out here, where as they're putting their brush down, see, that's not even enough still. It's hard for me sometimes to do these things because when you've been painting for 10 plus years, it's like a hard muscle memory thing to like do it not the way you normally do it. So I'm trying to see if I can get this on here enough. But right now you can see it's starting to puddle up. So really what I'm doing is I'm just getting a ton of water to create a puddle. And the problem with this is you're having a hard time. As you're like moving it around, it usually gets a little bit uncontrollable. And then the other problem too is when it's puddling up on your paper like this, because you have so much water, is it's also gonna dry uneven. So if you're getting washes that are uneven, it's probably because you're having too much water. And then depending how the paper is laying, where it pools up a little bit more when it dries, the coloring's gonna be a little bit off. So if you feel like your washes, you're not getting a smooth wash, it could just be because you're using a little bit too much water, that when it's drying, you're getting an unevenness in it. Now, I would say out of all my students, using too much water was only 10% of the class always. More than likely, the other 90% was always not using enough water. And that's the problem I saw more than using too much water. And what they would do is they would grab their paint. I'm gonna see if I can. Usually they wouldn't even have enough, like I'd say, you know, wet your paints and do all that. And they, one ear in and out the other, but they would kind of grab their paint and they would be working with almost a dry brush. So you see how this is going on, and as I'm painting, it's hard to paint with watercolor when your brush is already this dry, and it's gonna just start drying on you before you can even finish the entire little tiny blueberry that I'm working with. And so not having enough water was always more of the class using this strategy. And I think it's because we're used to like acrylic paint, or even if you've worked with oil paint, where you're not needing water for it to like work. You just acrylic paint, you put down and you grab it and you paint with it. And so I think that's why 90% of the class had this problem and not this problem. Although again, a few people would do this, but this one, they're both so easy to correct. It's just making sure to have that perfect ratio of water to paint. And I know I'm saying that kind of like, oh, that's so easy. And I know it's not necessarily so easy. It comes with time as you're practicing. But right now, just be aware of, if it's a little scratchy like that, add a little bit more water into your mixture. If you can't really control it, you probably have a little bit too much water, or if it's drying and you're having unevenness as it's drying, then it's probably a little bit too much water. So just starting to be aware of that and then correcting that as you go is going to be huge as you're starting to paint. Now, the last thing that 100% of the students did this was not using the correct brush size. So usually on the table, I would just have a bunch of brushes, because depending on what we were painting, sometimes they did need bigger brushes and sometimes they needed the smaller brushes. But I would tell them to not grab those smaller brushes, which is your size 2, your size 4, size 6 is kind of getting a little bit better, but I wanted them to mostly paint in at least a size 8 or even a size 10 to start out with. Because if you are grabbing a size 2 and a size 4 and starting a painting like this, if I grab my size 2 and I'm coming over into my green, This is even painful right now because it's taking so long just to even get enough paint out on my palette because this brush is so tiny. So it's taking me so much longer to do something that would take me half the time with the right brush that I should be using. And so the mistake that beginners make is they want to use this small of a brush because they feel like then they can control it a little bit more, which is true. I'm not gonna deny that. Like if I'm painting with this, like I can do really small, tiny strokes. I'm a little bit more in control of the water because again, my brush size is so small, so where I put my brush is kind of where things stay, and we feel like we, again, are a little bit more in control of it. And that is good, except for the fact that when you're using this small of a brush, with watercolor specifically, it might work if you're using acrylic this small of a brush because you don't have to worry about time as much with your paints drying. But with watercolor, you have only a limited amount of time before that starts to dry. And what happens if this starts to dry on you before you get this covered all the way down? You then will have unevenness in this as it's drying because a part is gonna dry and then it's gonna overlap with a part that's not dry, or you get blooms. So if this half starts to dry, and then I'm still trying to come into this area and continue painting, as that part is drying already, then you're gonna get a bloom from other like of your paint coming into it. And so this creates so much more problem because with watercolor, you gotta cover your area somewhat quickly before it starts to dry on you. And also using the small of a brush, you get caught up in details. Like right now when I'm painting this tree, I shouldn't be really worried about doing tiny strokes. I should be just covering the entire tree as quickly as possible right now and just getting that base color down. I, can just look at those strokes I can get. It's just so much more loose. And I think we all always want, for the most part, that fresh, fun feeling with our watercolors. And people always ask, how do I get loose with my watercolors? Like, how can I get it to look like, not necessarily effortless, but just that feeling of expressiveness and all of that. And that comes from using a larger brush and putting it down and then letting it also just be what it is. I'm not as picky when I'm using a bigger brush either. Like when I'm using a smaller brush, I can get caught up in like a little area and get kind of finicky about it and be putting stuff in there that I shouldn't be doing that, especially on your first layer. So let me preface all of this with, this is the first layer of the tree. You never, ever, on anything you are painting, unless it is microscopic, should you be using a size 2 or a size 4. And I will die on that hill because with your first layer, you want to get it in as quickly as possible, as loose as possible. Just put in those light areas. And then at the end, your final layers, probably not even your second layer, but maybe my third to final layer, fourth layer, whatever it is. Then if you want to transfer to these smaller brushes, at that point, go to the smaller brush and you can add in that little bit of detail on that 10 to 20% of the painting, which is where it should be anyway. Detail should be at the very end of a painting. We should never be doing detail on a painting at the beginning because you've got more layers. You're just gonna end up kind of covering it up or trying to avoid these areas that you put detail in that you shouldn't have at the beginning. So last tip is use a bigger brush. I promise, even though it's a little bit scarier because it's a little harder to control, you can get more water and more paint in your brush. In the end, it is going to help you with your paintings so much more than grabbing these little guys and painting and then getting frustrated with it drying on you too fast, creating blooms, adding detail when you shouldn't be adding detail yet, and getting caught up in just too much of this microscopic. I feel like when I'm doing this, I'm really almost even lower when I'm painting because it's the mark it makes, this is the mark it's making, versus if I grab, Gotta get more green out here. If I grab this, this is the mark it's making. It's like, it's not like I have bad eyes, but it's like when I'm painting with this tiny brush, I almost have to get like closer up into my painting instead of saying like further back with a bigger brush. So those are my 3 biggest tips. Don't use black for your shadows. Figure out if you're using too much water or not enough water. And at the beginning, that's something that's like riding a bike. You'll start to get it. Just be aware right now of which one you're doing and then try and correct it. And then last but not least, using a bigger brush, except for that little last bit of the painting. And to be honest, this last thing I have to say about the brush, because it's such a big one, I talk about a lot in my classes, and that is, if you have a bigger brush, still the tip on it can get this thin. So to be honest, I pulled these out. I had to like go find them in my cups behind my desk because I don't ever use them. I never ever use a size 2 or size 4. I actually still use a size 8, and all I do is I change my pressure. Now I can get a thin line because I'm not pressing down as hard. And so I talk about this in my Watercolor 101 course, that you don't even need a tiny brush if you figure out your pressure control. So this is a little PDF booklet I've made for my Watercolor 101 course, but I talk about the speed, your angle, and your pressure, and I kind of came up with this cool chart. And so in that course, I really talk about how you can just do so much with one size brush. And if you travel or, you don't have a lot of room or space or money, one brush, you can do everything with it. It's just based on your pressure. If you are more interested in my Watercolor 101 course that has over 10 hours of lessons, I'll have that link below. I hope this helps you a little bit with troubleshooting some of those beginner mistakes. It's what I saw the most of in my classes as I was teaching. And so I hope that helps implement into your painting practice. Please like, subscribe, and I love reading your guys' comments. I can't always respond to all of them, but I do try and read through them. So thank you so much, and I will see you guys in the next video.